Hey everybody, this is Captain Kyle and I have a new Transformers reissue knockoff review for you. This time a set of all 5 of the G1 style Dinobots. But again, they're knockoffs. So very cool packaging, very cool figures. I'm gonna go through them one by one and see if they're good. Because that's all we really want, is some good Dinobots. Though sometimes they're bad, but quality. Be right back. So we're gonna start with the leader, Grimlock, who of course was voiced by Greg Berger in the G1 cartoon series.
Meet Grimlock, meet Dinobot leader.
Very popular character, went through a number of different personality changes, and if possible, got kind of dumber as the seasons progressed. Except for this one episode, which we'll get to later. But as you can see, the packaging is really spot on with this fake reissue of Grimlock. You can see we have the tech spec on the back, we have the artwork, even the robot points. Everything looks great. Now I'm gonna unbox this guy. Now Grimlock was introduced with 2 of the other Dinobots in the G1 cartoon because Wheeljack decided he wanted to make robot dinosaurs. And he gave them small brains. A choice that to this day is a little odd. However, in the comic book, Teletran 1 detected a Decepticon approaching Earth while the ship was in its slumber, and it was Shockwave. And we actually have to thank the Marvel Universe for the Dinobots, though they don't really reflect on it all that much, because Shockwave went to the Savage Land, which is an area in Marvel Comics at the South Pole where dinosaurs still roam and run free and all that wonderful stuff. Teletran made a mistake, decided to revive these 5 Autobots and send them down to fight off Shockwave, and didn't realize that these giant creatures weren't robotic. So created robotic dinosaurs. Oddly, all 5 Dinobots were defeated by Shockwave, who in the comics was quite the force and not the loyal servant of Megatron you thought, and they remained in stasis for years after that, until they were rediscovered by Ratchet. Now again, the box looks really cool on Grimlock. The interior packaging is plastic, which I must say is not, from what I recall, what the original Dinobots came in. I think they were in styrofoam, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm too lazy to look it up. But that's definitely one way you can tell this is not an original. But so far, in the packaging, it looks pretty good. Inside the packaging is the figure of Grimlock, the 3 missiles on the sprue that come with his missile launcher, a red sword, feels pretty much G1 in consistency. The G2 swords were a little bit different. And his gun. Also included are instructions. I don't need to refer to them, but I would like to see if there are any stickers inside. And lo and behold, there are stickers and a tech spec decoder. And one of the things that definitely tells us that this is a reissue knockoff, it has the symbol, the rub sign, separate inside the packaging. We also have what appears to be the factory stickers, as well as the sticker sheet that came with the original toy. Still overall, a nice set. Now before we get into the transformation, let me put my knife away before I stab myself, and let's examine the dino mode, the Tyrannosaurus Rex that is Grimlock. Now his arms, well, the posability isn't exactly a lot. The arms move back and forth, and they don't appear to be too loose, which is good. He can kind of bend his knees a little bit in his legs. I am not a paleontologist, so I am not sure if T-Rex would bend that way or backwards or what he exactly would do, but it is limited maneuverability. You can, of course, bend the claws so he can like climb onto a cliff or something, and the jaw opens, which is a good thing, just like the original, and again, it does not feel too loose. Weight-wise, it feels pretty identical to an original, though feeling it, I haven't detected any die-cast parts, so we'll see once we transform it. But me, Grimlock, make handsome dinosaur. Ooh. All right, now, as I said, I don't need the instructions. I'm going to separate the tail. I'm gonna pull back the head. It's resisting me a little bit, and I don't want to be too rough with this because it is a knockoff, but a little wiggling and it came off, and it does not appear to be broken at all. Just a little stiff. Maybe if you got an original Grimlock way back in the day. I had an original Grimlock, but it was not from the box. It was secondhand, so I don't know how stiff he was when he came out of the box. But he transforms well enough. He looks like an original G1. The groin plate, yeah, I'm touching his groin, does feel like it's metal, so there are some die-cast components to this. Now, generally as a robot originally from the Diaclone line, which he does still have his little pilot seat that you can open up, but the posability wasn't huge. His head does not turn. His arms can go up and down, and he can bend at the knee, but he can't bend at the hip. So pretty much he can kneel down, which he doesn't really do for anybody, even Optimus Prime. Not that Optimus would want that. Though because of the nature of his transformation, hey, he can do a full Jean-Claude Van Damme. Woohoo! I'll put the stickers on later. Watching me try to put on stickers is not exactly the most fun thing. The weapons go into his hands fine. I think I may still have a silver Grimlock Diaclone sword that I might swap that out for. If not, I sold it, but if I still have it, I'm gonna put that on him. I'm removing the missiles from the sprue. I know all three of them. And we are going to load his missile launcher. And let's see, pretty good. Probably on par with most US toys at the time. So overall, by the feel of him, feels like a good Grimlock. He feels pretty much quality, so I would be careful purchasing an unboxed Grimlock from someone nowadays though, because it could be a knockoff. The only thing that concerned me was transforming him from Tyrannosaurus into robot, but now that I've kind of done it once, the head seems fine to just pop back. So far, A+ on Grimlock, even if he is filled with Beryllium Bologna. So next up is the Dinobot who is filled with Cesium Salami, Slag. Now just looking in the box, I mean the box again looks cool, tech spec, all that wonderful stuff. It's a great representation. And you know, come to think of it, I could be very well wrong about the packaging on the original G1 Dinobots. Again, I got them mostly secondhand. So the plastic bubble might be actually accurate. So I know some of the original Transformers, like Optimus Prime, came in styrofoam, but they might have switched to bubble later on. Instructions, the bot in the possibly accurate packaging. On the back, it has little serrated edges, so you could push through and take him out from behind. Phrasing. So you could rip it apart, which I'm doing. Sword, missiles, missile launcher, and silver gun. Silver gun. It's blasting time in the city. Okay, I'm gonna spare you that. All right, again, I am sure the instructions also include the rub sign to put on, woohoo, sticker sheets, and decoder. Excellent. So Slag in his Triceratops mode, as with a lot of these, which are actually genuine, the horns are kind of movable. They can move off to the side, they can move forward. Again, I got mine secondhand years ago, and I don't even have it anymore, but I think that's pretty accurate. And you can move his legs a little bit, and you can even bend his back legs at the knee a little bit. But again, the posability on these guys, they're great toys, not very posable. So I will transform him. Let's check out his robot mode. The wings come out, the fists come out. Moving his jaw down, there's a little stiffness, but again, it could just be because it's a new toy. And there he is in robot mode. You can bend his knees kind of, but he's got the tail in the back that kind of gets in the way. Can move his arms up and down. Head does not turn. And I do have to say that the fists don't really pop into fully extended mode. I'm not even sure that the original did that, but once you put the weapons in his hands, which they are a little stiff, that will keep the hands out fine. He also has his little shoulder missile launcher. I have to say the missile was very difficult to push in. It seems a little tight, so I don't think the launcher works all that well, or at all, but you can still stick it on his shoulder and it can look very intimidating. Honestly, these missiles flying around, they get lost very easily. My original G1 tracks glued his missiles into his missile launchers, so it's not the case with my current one, but it's not a horrible thing that the missile doesn't go flying around. So he looks fine. Again, the quality, the feel of him He feels pretty much like the original, so good for Slag. Now, Sludge is the last of the first trio of Dinobots that Wheeljack made in the cartoon. And I gotta say, the packaging's slightly damaged, probably happened in shipping. Still a kind of cool box, tech spec. And I'm gonna be sending in those robot points. I don't know what for, but I'm gonna send them in. I think by now we know that in here is the stickers and the rub sign and all that stuff. So I'm not gonna open this now. Let's just look at the figure. And it opens, says me. Missile launcher, missiles, gun, sword. So the Brontosaurus, I believe, again, not a paleontologist, who is named Sludge. Now, when Megatron was checking them for weaknesses, he said that Grimlock was arrogant, Slag was aggressive, and Sludge was stupid. And when you're comparing him against other Dinobots in the cartoon, that's saying a lot. But still, he's a very cool figure. Again, very minor ability. You can move his front legs, but they're attached to his forearms in robot mode, so that doesn't work out too well. And you can move his back legs and his feet, which is actually part of the transformation process, but again, very minor abilities to pose this guy. You can open his mouth though. So there he is. Let's get him into robot mode. Now what's interesting with the Dinobots is they all have wings of some kind, which in the continuity of the comics meant that they were some of the few Autobots who could fly in robot mode. And Sludge definitely has a great set of wings. His tail seems to be a little tough to get apart. Again, brand new toy right out of the box. He does have these two offset tabs on the bottom side of his tail, but they don't seem to want to open. Open, damn it, open. Sorry, wrong character. I finally got it popped apart. I'm hoping when I pop it back together, maybe it'll come apart more easily, or maybe I'll keep him in robot mode forever. It's kind of tight, so you could put a little lube in there, but just be aware that the tail, at least on mine, was a little tight, which is better than it just flopping open. But having tight joints on a Transformer, not a horrible thing. So there he is finally in robot mode. He's got his nice wings. He can move his arms back and forth. He can do something others cannot. He can kind of almost do a Wakanda Forever. And again, his knees bend backwards, not forward, and he can do a full Jean-Claude Van Damme. So two of them can. His weapons make him a handsome and well-armed bot. And his missile launcher, the missile went in very easily. And that's got some power. I always found it interesting that the Dinobots came with an extra weapon that they couldn't always use. In Slag's case, he could put it on his shoulder, but for the rest of them, I don't really see a way for them to use 3 weapons at once, but I guess it's nice to have options. So in the cartoon, after they built the first 3 Dinobots and they went kind of amok, later on, Wheeljack created 2 more, and the other 2 ended up fighting the original 3. I don't know, it was a mess. And Snarl, who appeared only briefly in the movie and not appear to leave Earth or be anywhere in many of the adventures, is the next one that we're opening up. Again, the nice packaging. I think you guys would be surprised if this was not as good of packaging. Instructions, stickers, decoder, rub sign. Now one thing that's interesting about Snarl, solar power, which, you know, it's nice that they have some green Autobots. So an interesting thing is his missiles are black. I don't remember, they might have been originally black. I know he didn't have them in his G2 version, but there he is with his sword, missile launcher, missiles, and gun. We'll look at those in a bit. Here he is in his Stegosaurus mode. Again, limited as far as posability. He can't even open his mouth on this one. And if you don't position him just right, his back feet don't even touch the ground because his tail kind of lifts him up in the hindquarters. Still, he feels solid in his Stegosaurus mode. Now, what's interesting about him is his wings actually are formed from his tail, and his head splits in twain. So his transformation is a little different than the others. And though I failed to mention it, all of them seem to have their Diaclone pilot little cabinet there. His fists are spring-loaded and they spring somewhat. There we go. And there we have Snarl in all his glory. Like many of the Dinobots, he can bend the knee. His legs, however, can actually kind of bend a little bit backwards, not so much forwards. And the arms well, you can move them up and down. No turning the head. Now, one thing I will say about this one is his gun seems a little loose in his hand. So I'm not very pleased about that. The sword, kind of the same way if we switch. Yeah, so once in a while, these guys who make these very fun and interesting knockoffs do have some issues as far as sizing. So not happy about that, but am I really going to complain about it? Now, his missile launcher is interesting because it does not go into his hand, and he, like Slag, can actually have it in robot mode, and it actually stays in there quite nicely as kind of an arm cannon, which the gun would stay in quite nicely. Now, there are ways to remedy that. I could try to thicken up the handle a little bit with a little maybe glue around it or paint, or I could just get a new Snarl weapon and hope it fits. Now let's see what the black missiles do. They got some power, so I can't complain about the missile launcher. So overall, this is the only one I've had an issue with because of the loose weapons, but overall, he's a pretty good figure, just basically identical to the G1. Just doesn't like holding his weapon. And finally, we have Swoop, no see nothing. Now Swoop is generally considered, if you're trying to get an original G1 and you're getting it loose, is a little more difficult to get in good shape because he had a tendency to break. He was much more fragile than the other Dinobots. So I will be curious to see the quality of this, because if you really want a 100% complete Swoop that's all together, this is a way to do it. We know it's in there. So there he is, Swoop in his pterodactyl mode, or Pteranodon. So I have to say I'm not a paleontologist, well I just did. As far as posability, he's got his wings that you can place in various positions. He can open up his beak a little bit, not a huge amount, but some. He's got these feet, and you can move the head forward and he could land and be looking at you like your dinner. But again, like most Dinobots, not a ton of posability. Let's get him into robot mode. Though I will say he is a Dinobot that does have weapons in his Dino mode with 2 missile launchers. It seemed to load just fine, so he could actually attack from the air. I'm being very careful with the wings because those often break, but they seem fine. A little tight, but that's to be expected with a brand new toy. A lot of times his beak is incomplete or broken when you find vintage ones. So, and what is interesting is he does have a landing gear, which I don't know what's the point of having the one landing gear coming out of his chest, but it's what he's got. So there he is in bot mode. Again, he can move his arms forward, up and down. Ooh. His legs, you can kind of bend them backwards, but that's pretty much about it. No Jean-Claude Van Damme for this guy. On this one, his sword fits in quite well. You can also put a missile launcher in his hand instead of just on his wing, so he's got 2 of them. Let's see what's going to happen. Not as powerful as some of the others, but again, not bad. Couple feet, just enough for you to lose it in the couch cushions or wherever. So there he is, the amazing Swoop. So there you have them, all 5 Dinobots, reissues, high quality knockoffs. And despite the one issue that I kind of have with Snarl's gun and the missile launcher on Slag not being all that functional, I'd say overall they're worth it. Now, what are they worth? Well, I paid $169 for all of them. Plus, I think shipping may have been free, or, might have been a small amount for shipping. Took a little while to get here, but for the price, it's about $33.50 per figure. And considering what they cost for originals, especially complete, especially in good shape, especially in box, I'd say it's definitely worth the $33.50. Even if you do have to get a new weapon for Snarl. And of course, once you have the G1 Grimlock, you need to get a G1 Computron, because at some point he's going to become a super genius and he's going to have to give his intelligence to Computron. So we can't have him being too smart. Though I have to say, in the comic books, he was smart enough to lead the entire Autobot army after Optimus disappeared / died / all that stuff. So maybe he's not as dumb as we think. But in the cartoon, he became a waiter. I hope you enjoyed this Dinobot review. I'm going to have some more of these high quality knockoff reissues to review pretty soon. And if you want to get these guys for yourself, I put a link down in the description. You can find them other places as well. I put links to AliExpress and eBay, but you might be able to find them elsewhere. And it's a great way when you don't have a ton of money to basically recapture your G1 childhood. Or capture a G1 childhood if you weren't around at the time. Up to you. We will see you next time, and while you're waiting for these amazing recreations of the G1 Dinobots, you can maybe watch some other videos, subscribe, like, share, all the stuff. You know what to do. We'll see you next time, and as always, have fun and good hunting.